All right, people, it is Super Tuesday here in America, March 3rd, 2020. A lot is happening in the world of elections and things of that nature. We are going to do, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to do our first ever live video Skype call-in show tonight here on the Rubin Report on YouTube Live. That's what we're doing tonight. I'll also take text questions from you. I'm going to share some thoughts. It's been a bananas hour for me. I was at the Daily Wire at 5 o'clock till 5:20, chatted with Clavin and Knowles and Jeremy Boring and that Shapiro guy for about 20 minutes, jumped in my car, drove home. I had a 9-minute window, and then I was just live with Glenn Beck doing the video thing. He's obviously over in Texas. We did that for about 20 minutes. My crew's pulling all sorts of stuff together. Here I am live with you guys. We are doing our first ever live Skype call-in show. So look, you could be watching CNN right now. You could be watching MSNBC. You could be watching whatever else there is out there. But on those shows, you're just going to get a bunch of depressed alcoholics who get everything wrong every time, doing it over and over again. On this show, you're going to get a non-depressed host who's not drunk, drinking water, I am staying hydrated, and real people all over the country. So if you want to submit a question, either by text or by video, I'm only taking questions from people that are part of the Rubin Report community. So just go sign up at rubinreport.com and submit a question. You tell us your Skype name, we'll see what we can work out. It is Super Tuesday and a lot of interesting things are happening. Before I get to questions or some of the latest updates and the rest of it, I thought I would just fill you guys in on a little bit of what my last couple of days have been like. I did vote yesterday, so I went to our local voting area. It was a very unimpressive little room with a lot of seemingly homeless people around. This is Los Angeles. It's not quite as homelessy as San Francisco, but we're getting there. I am registered as an independent, so the way it works here in California is if you're registered as an independent, when you get there, before you get to the booth, when you're checking in, you can pick which party you want to vote for. So in this case, it was very obvious that I want my ability as a citizen to affect the outcome of the Democratic primary more than the Republican primary right now, right? Because obviously Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. So I want to be able to influence the Democratic side. So I had to pick Democratic, and then I got the list of Democratic candidates. Now, part of the silliness of early voting, and I don't hear anybody talking about this, is that we just had yesterday Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar drop out of the race, but open voting, early voting here in California, and I think in many of the other states, has been happening for about 10 days. So that means there are thousands and thousands of people who voted for Klobuchar, who voted for Pete Buttigieg, who, had they known they were going to drop out the day before Super Tuesday, might have voted for somebody else. Now, Klobuchar and Buttigieg have now both endorsed Biden, so maybe those people would have voted for Biden, maybe they would have voted for nobody, maybe they would have voted for Sanders, who knows? But it just does show you all the machinations and the game that is politics, right? Because it's like what's really going on here, I don't think it takes a genius to put the pieces together, is that finally, whatever is left of the moderates of the Democratic Party, and I'm not even sure that there are any moderates left, finally they're coalescing around Biden to say we've got to stop the socialist insurgency. Because the simple truth, the uncomfortable truth, is that the Democrats have a parasite in the host, right? The host is the Democratic Party. That party has a platform, and that party is supposed to have some sort of cohesive set of views. And then the socialists came in, and the progressives snuck in with the socialists, and they're taking down the entire party. And there's a lot of energy amongst young people for that. And as I've been saying for a couple weeks now, if not a couple months, I don't think the Democratic Party survives this thing. The ideas of the Bernie Sanders socialists are so counter to whatever decent ideas the remaining Democrats have, whatever those ideas are, because it's actually very unclear what cohesive ideas Biden and Buttigieg and Klobuchar, let's say the more moderates, have. But they're not socialists. And that's why everyone suddenly was like, holy cow, these last 2 weeks, it really seems like Bernie's going to get away with it or steal this thing from our party. And he's not a Democrat. He is a socialist. He calls himself a democratic socialist, but as I've said for a long time, he's just hanging the word Democrat for a while. And then once socialist becomes cool enough, he'll drop that word. So they're finally saying we're standing up to the socialists. But I don't think the party can stop this thing. I see, and what probably should happen at this point is let these two groups of people go a different way. Let the socialists and the progressives have their giant government do everything for you, take from everybody and give to whoever you want to give to. Let them have that party, and let the remaining Democrats have whatever it is they stand for. And again, I'm just not sure what they stand for at this point. And then let the Republicans have their own party. I do want to bring up something interesting because it's come up a couple of times. I just discussed this with Glenn Beck, is that on the right, you could say, well, what do you mean? On the right, they've got their own divisions too, right? They've got libertarians, they've got conservatives, they've got some classical liberals, whatever it is. But those things, if you think back to 2016, try to remember the primaries. And during the primaries, you had Ted Cruz, he was against Trump, and you had Marco Rubio, and he was against Trump, and you had Chris Christie, and a whole bunch of other people. Now, they were all arguing about things, but they kind of, in many cases, were really arguing about personality, right? It was like, oh, don't vote for Trump because of his personality. But the basic idea is that they all are capitalists. They all talk about the Constitution, freedom, liberty, states' rights. They're all mostly, I think all of them actually are pro-life. Now, you may not be pro-life, but there's a cohesive set of ideas there. And then there's different personalities within that. There's different tactics within that. But what has happened on the left is there is no unifying principle anymore. So the unifying principle of the right is the Constitution, right? Is that these people basically want to be governed by the Constitution. They want individual rights. They believe in capitalism. What is that on the left anymore? I don't think anybody knows. So the only way to fully unearth that thing, I think, would be for the socialists to have the party and the Democrats to have the party. There's a whole bunch of weird things happening right now. So they're coalescing around Biden, who at, I think, 77 years old, this is the sad, uncomfortable truth that nobody in the mainstream media wants to touch, is obviously having cognitive problems. That is sad, it's unfortunate. I'm pretty sure everybody watching this has either seen a great-grandparent or a grandparent or a parent go through this. I just did a show actually this morning with Max Lugavere, who wrote a book called Genius Foods, and his new book is Genius Life, whose mom got Alzheimer's disease at 58 years old. That's what got him into this whole thing in the first place. So we talked about degenerative diseases like this and cognitive issues. So this is deeply sad, I would say, and depressing, what seemingly is happening to Joe Biden right now. But the party's going, oh, he's the guy to coalesce around as the last thing to stop the socialists. And I think what the really scary part of this is, and by the way, I think Joe Biden's probably a pretty decent guy. I think he actually loves America. I actually think, he said the word Constitution in one of their debates. They never say it. Tulsi Gabbard does talk about the Constitution occasionally, but try to imagine Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders saying something positive about the Constitution. They can't. Try to imagine them invoking the Bill of Rights. They can't, right? All their policies are actually in complete opposition to our founding documents, actually. So the real issue here is that they're coalescing around a guy that there is no reason to think not only that he can make it to the election, just cognitively, but then lead the country for 4 years. I mean, this is a huge, deeply uncomfortable problem that they're going to have to grapple with. But it's not just them that are going to have to grapple with it. It's everyone who considers themselves a Democrat or a lefty. If you're voting for Joe Biden, you have to strongly, strongly consider that you're actually not voting for 4 years of Joe Biden. You're voting for whoever the vice president is. So, every time an election rolls around, it's like the vice president can cause a little bump or a little controversy. I mean, remember Sarah Palin and John McCain. But it's like, we had Dan Quayle with George H.W. Bush, and there's been some strange choices over the years, or it was like, we had Dick Cheney, who many people thought was running the country more than W. Bush. But what this really comes down to is, in a very different way than has happened, at least in the last 50 some odd years, is that if you vote for Joe Biden, you really have to think you're voting for the vice president. You have to really take that into account. And by the way, Bernie Sanders is a year older than Joe Biden and had a heart attack within the last 6 months. So it's somehow the two old white millionaires. That's what the Democrats got left with, which, make of that what you will. I guess Warren's still in it, but she'll be out soon. She's just trying to figure out what she can extract out of Bernie for an endorsement or something like that. But look, if Bernie is able to extract a VP position, it won't be Bernie, but if he's able to extract a VP position out of Biden to say, I'm not going to have my foot soldiers burn down the party in Milwaukee, so you got to take AOC, or you got to take Stacey Abrams, or one of the people who will just do my bidding, well, then you really should know as a Democrat you're voting for a socialist, because Biden can't do this. I mean, I think it's just sad and obvious. It's just sad and obvious. So we're in a really weird spot. All that being said, from the numbers I'm looking at, and they're showing me some stuff live right now, Biden's having a pretty good night. Bernie is doing sort of where everyone expected. And I would say, and Bloomberg is just a total bust. I mean, Bloomberg has no personality. Nobody likes the billionaire coming in trying to buy the thing. Did you guys see the video of him licking his fingers today after he eats pizza and then he touches the coffee thing? And it's like, what is this? This guy is so out of touch. He has no personality. I think he's probably a decent guy, and I think he's probably a functioning executive, and I voted for him for mayor at least once when I lived in New York City, and I think he knows how to run things. But man, this is just what a terrible candidate, terrible debater, no personality, no nothing. Okay. So here's what we're going to do, guys. I'm going to take some of your Skype calls. You guys have also been texting in things. These are all for people that are part of the Rubin Report community, which you can join for free at rubinreport.com. And we're going to talk to you guys, actual real human beings. We're going to see what happens when real human beings make it on YouTube. Pretty crazy. But I'm going to do a couple text questions first, and then we'll go from there. With candidates dropping out and coalescing behind Joe Biden, do Bernie Sanders voters start to feel like the DNC dislikes him as much as Trump? Yeah, the DNC, you got to remember, the DNC is a party, is a political party, which means it has a set of views known as the party platform, and these are the ideas that they want to get out there. This is what I was saying before. Bernie is saying, I'm a socialist. I'm coming into your party and taking over. So the party has it well within their right. You know, people were saying, oh, well, they're going to steal the election from Bernie. Now, if Bernie had got to the convention and gotten enough delegates by their rules, by the party's rules, if he had gotten enough delegates to just be the nominee and then they took the nomination away from him, that would be stealing it. But if he doesn't hit the threshold of delegates that he needs to automatically trigger the nomination, well, then they have a brokered convention, and that's why the Democrats have superdelegates. So you may not like the idea of superdelegates, and that's fine, and you may think it's a corrupt way of doing it, and that's fine too. But if the party then goes, okay, we got to the convention, Bernie's winning, potentially even by a lot, although now it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But Bernie has a nice chunk here. He's beating Biden. Let's just say it's by a little bit. Doesn't matter how much it's by. The superdelegates can come in and make the final decision. That's how the party operates. And again, you don't have to like those rules. You don't have to like their system, but that's how it is. And I would say it would be self-preservation for the party at that point to say, all right, our rabid young base of socialists wanted one thing, but we don't view that to be a functional, positive future for our party because we don't think socialism really sells in America, and that ultimately in the election, Trump will be able to just scream, see, this guy hates America, and I love America, and then there'll just be a wipeout of the socialist left, which, by the way, is exactly what happened with Corbyn in the UK. So the party can do whatever it sees fit to survive as a party, which is why I'm saying, Bernie, if you don't like it and you don't like the superdelegates, then leave, create your own party. So I do think that's the ultimate end of where this gets with the Democrats right now. I'm going to do one more, and then we will jump to your video calls. We'll start taking video calls. By the way, it looks like Warren's just doing pretty crappy tonight. So at the moment, if I'm looking at this, as of 7 minutes ago, right now, the delegate count is this. Joe Biden now has 138 delegates. Bernie Sanders has 90. Buttigieg has 26. Warren has 9, and let's forget the rest. So Biden is now the serious front runner, and you're going to see the media back him more. You're going to see the other Democrats come out. The interesting piece of this is, where is Barack Obama? Where is Hillary Clinton, right? Where are the real power people of the party? Are they still worried? Were they waiting for this to happen today? I mean, I suspect, it seems to me, if you're Barack Obama, you've been kind of playing the fence both sides here, right? Like, you know that the progressives are the future of this thing, whether you like it or not. So you didn't want to back Biden early because if he flamed out, you'd look pretty stupid. But at this point, it's like if everybody's going Biden, regardless of what your concerns are or the cognitive stuff or whatever else, it's like the wise, it seems to me, I guess at that point, if that's your line of thinking, the wise thing for Obama tomorrow would be like, all right, Biden's firmly in the lead. This is my guy. He was the VP. Should have come around a little earlier, but I wanted him to do it on his own. And here we are. And something similar for Hillary. But I'm telling you guys, I just think that the rules are so out of whack right now. And I think that the selective pressures related to the cognitive stuff and the socialist stuff, I think everything is in such flux right now that I think there's like a 25% chance that Hillary could somehow get back in or the party leaders select her. Like this whole thing is seriously a mess. And for some reason, the mainstream media refuses to have an honest conversation about it, which also then creates what I called on Twitter yesterday, sort of the great truth divide, which is that if you're paying attention to YouTube and podcasts and Twitter, we're all seeing certain things. So the Biden gaffes is interesting because if you watch CNN, you never see the Biden gaffes, right? When he can't remember where he is or he says he's in South Dakota or this, that, the other thing. And all of these things, you never see them on mainstream media. But if you live online, like most younger people do, and actually most even people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and maybe into their 60s and above do at this point, you start seeing this stuff, right? Because it gets out there on Instagram, it gets out there on Twitter. But then we have a truth divide because people are watching CNN going, oh, Biden gave another great speech and the media seems to like him and the Democrats like him. And then the online people are going, did you see this? Did you see this? Forgot what state he's in. Can't remember this. Said 170 million people were killed by guns, as he said at the debate last week. All this stuff, and it's like, man. Then these two groups, they can't sort of come together and say this is actually true. What is happening here? So we got a series of problems right now related to national discourse. I've been trying to clean up a little bit of it. I think we're doing okay here. Texas is a really interesting one. What I'm seeing right now is that Sanders is at 28.8% and Biden's at 22.3%. Now the Democrats do this by proportion. So if you win by 5%, you're only getting the proportion in terms of delegates. So it's not a winner take all thing, right? So the Republicans do winner take all, which as Shapiro was just laying out when I was on the Daily Wire about an hour ago, one of the things that really helped Trump was he won a lot of early states. You win them fully, you get all the delegates, and then it feels like you have this endless momentum. Where with the Democrats, it's a little harder to get full-on momentum. Anyway, so the delegate count right now is 138 Biden, 90 Sanders, 26 Buttigieg, forget that, and 9 Elizabeth Warren. I will say one other thing, and then we're going to take our first call from you, the good people of the United States of America. I will say this, that, you know, this idea, which I briefly touched on a moment ago, that think how pissed you would be if you voted early in one of these states and you really were for Amy Klobuchar. You really were for Pete Buttigieg. I read something today that Pete Buttigieg was about to close his highest round of fundraising, his highest quarter of fundraising so far. It's like, people believed in these people, but then the nature of politics is such that the party leaders get together, everyone gets together, they talk it out, and they're like, who knows what level of pressure was applied to Pete, where it's like, Pete, yeah, you think you're doing fine, but you're not, this isn't your year, man. The superdelegates ain't gonna help you at the end. So if you want a future in this party, right, Pete, you're young, you want to get back in this thing in 4 years, you're gonna back Biden now. Now, who knows, you know, they said to Klobuchar, you want to be attorney general, right? In a Biden administration, get out now, because you wait 2 days, we're not letting you get it, because they know that those voters most likely go to Biden, not to Sanders. So everyone has to remember there's so many backdoor deals here. By the way, I don't think any of that in and of itself is corruption. I don't even think any of that in and of itself is bad. I mean, this is just the nature of reality. People try to extract things from other people, you negotiate, you all do these things. But I just think for the people that come into politics sort of wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, and you're supporting these guys, and then you vote for them 3 days early, and then they drop out the day before the big prize, which is today, Super Tuesday, it's just pretty depressing. And that's one of the things that disaffects young voters. So there's a lot of interesting things at play. All right, guys, we're going to do our first ever live Skype call-in show. And who we're going to go to first? Why don't we go to Tanner? Let's talk, Tanner. What do you got for me, my friend?
Hello?
Tanner, how are you?
Great, Dave. How are you doing?
Good. Dude, you are the first ever live Skype caller on the Rubin Report.
Wow, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Very nice to meet you, Dave.
Yeah. Oh, can you turn your camera on?
Is it on now?
They'll tell me in just a second. Is your camera on? There you go. There you are. Oh, very nice. You got
Right.
nice headphones, whole good setup, no backlight. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, I had to look it up.
Yeah.
I haven't done a Skype call like this in a while. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. So cool. What's on your mind on this Super Tuesday?
I'm pretty impressed, honestly. I'm originally from Virginia, actually, and was very surprised that Biden's actually pulling it out, which kind of blew my mind. Really light momentum there, I guess. But Texas is very surprising with Bernie having such an advantage there, and I'm just trying to wonder if that's like there could be some sort of momentum out of that with California as well. Just
Yeah.
winning that as well, and those are the two big states, right? Just trying to think out loud here and trying to see how this is all playing out because I think it is going to be close at the end of the night.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty close.
Mhm.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in California because that's obviously that's the big haul, right? That's the big one here.
Right.
And as I just said, I'm registered as an independent, but I went out there and voted for Biden today just to stop the Sanders thing. What do you think? Can I ask you how old you are?
I am 27.
So you're 27, so you're a young guy. What do you make of what's going on with the sort of young sort of energy that it seems like the socialists have? Do you think that's real?
I coming just out of college, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of bananas, but
Yeah.
there's definitely some sort of feeling about it. At least the people that I like hang out with and talk to, like on terms of political discourse, and and actually can have a nice conversation the next day. um, there are a lot of people like that, but I feel like social media, it's like easier to post about the socialist stuff, the left wing stuff, the progressive ideologies, and I feel like that's kind of shifted to the front of it, which is why it seems like there's a lot of people, is because those are the more favorable positions online. They get more likes and things like that. Twitter moves it to the top and whatever.
Yeah. Where would you say you shake out politically?
I am conservative. I did not vote for Trump in 2016. I was a never Trumper. I am actually planning to vote for Trump in 2020. That's my
Yeah, I
plan.
see a lot of that. I see a lot of
Yeah.
people that were either never Trumpers or that were Democrats that are just like, I can't take this, and if it's my only choice, I'll do it.
Yeah, yeah, seriously, it's that or Biden, who, bless his heart, I mean, he is struggling, and Sanders, who wants to tackle all the billionaires and rough it out and change up our economy. It's like things are going pretty well. I mean they're pretty good right now.
Yeah.
So
You got
I don't
another country
see
better than
change.
America?
Not that I visited, that's for sure.
Right on, man. Well, I appreciate you calling in. Thanks for being the first ever. You can put this on a business card now. You were the first ever live Rubin Report call-in guest on Super Tuesday 2020.
It's a terrific honor.
Awesome, man. And I really appreciate the support. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, great. Take care. Okay, have a great rest of the night.
All right, cool. You too. Thanks.
All right, see ya.
All right, people. That was our first ever live call. I think we're going to do more of this. I like it. I like it. Talking to real people instead of... Turn on CNN right now. If you're watching at your computer, throw your TV on. They got a box. There are 27 people in the box. Every one of them got everything wrong. They're all giving you the usual nonsense talking points. They all have campaign officials who all were working on other campaigns who are now supporting other campaigns. It's just a big freaking cyclone of stupidity. We're talking to real people over here on the Rubin Report, ladies and gentlemen. Tulsi Gabbard has won her first delegate. All right, there you go. Very nice. Okay, I'm going to do a couple questions via email that we got, and then we'll jump on and we'll do some more. Reminder, guys, if you want to talk to me, you can talk to me live. Real people here on the Rubin Report, not robotic pundits. Just jump on to rubinreport.com, sign up. You can submit a question. You'll see all the instructions on how you go about doing it there, and we'll talk to you guys tonight and see what's going on. This is a great question. Do you think any of the candidates that dropped out have been promised the VP seat? So I don't think anyone that just dropped out. So if you look at the just dropped out crew, right, you're basically looking at Buttigieg and Klobuchar as the just dropped out. But let's even take that further back, and you could look at any of the people that, Steyer was a couple days ago. You could look at Kamala Harris. You could look at Cory Booker, et cetera. I don't think anyone's been promised anything other than, guys, we're all coming around on old Joe, and if you want in on the party after, if you want to stop Sanders, number one, look at a guy like Buttigieg, right? Young, well-spoken. He comes off as a robot to me. I don't particularly like the guy. Let's not forget that Buttigieg, I had tweeted once at his campaign manager to have him on the show. The guy immediately tweeted back, said, yeah, let's do it. And then HuffPo, Vox, Media Matters, all the usual suspects, they all started attacking him on Twitter. And we had already started the logistical conversation behind the scenes on how to get him on the show, and they just stopped responding to us. And the communications manager for Buttigieg unfollowed me on Twitter. So this is not a guy I have a great amount of respect for. Not that he had anything to do that specifically, but he obviously has hired people that bow to the mob. But he's a guy that obviously has a future in the Democratic primary, right? Like, he's a little Obama clone. You probably saw that video of him and Obama just saying the exact same things with the exact same intonation. They put the videos side by side. It's something else. So the party leaders say to Buttigieg, all right, Pete, Mayor Pete, you want a future in this thing? Well, drop out now before it's Super Tuesday, because we're all doing this. We're all getting around old Joe, and maybe you'll be VP. Maybe you'll be in the cabinet. Maybe you'll be this. Maybe you'll be that. Who knows what's going on? Klobuchar, I think her as Attorney General would kind of make sense. Hey, Amy, we're all doing this. You want the Attorney General gig? I think there's all sorts of plays like that. But again, whoever Biden selects as VP, you have to view that as the presidential candidate. It's sad. It's sad. We all know it, and mainstream refuses to acknowledge it, that the Democrats right now are coalescing around a 77-year-old man who's a year younger than Bernie Sanders, who had a heart attack 6 months ago, who is having cognitive problems. That is just the truth. It is the sick, twisted, bizarro truth that we find ourselves having at 2020. But here we are. So I don't think anyone's been promised VP, but I do think this is the most important VP position that you could possibly imagine at this point, because in effect, you're voting for the President of the United States. Let's see. Can you convince right-leaning people that they don't have Bernie derangement syndrome? Maybe Bernie and the checks and balances will create a cool Singaporean USA. That's a really interesting question, because I've never been asked that before, and obviously I hit Bernie pretty hard. So Trump derangement syndrome, which is the other version of this, is basically these people that think Trump is starting World War III, Trump is Hitler, his supporters are Nazis, evil is here, they're coming, fascism, et cetera, et cetera. And none of those things are happening. You may not like the way he's done tax cuts. You may not like that he's cut some regulation. You may not like that he got out of the Paris Accords, or that we ended the Iran agreement, or any of these things. But none of the endless plethora of insane things. Remember, net neutrality was going to kill us. We killed the Iranian general Soleimani. They said World War III was going to start. All of these things, none of these things have come to fruition, right? He's governed basically as a pretty centrist Republican president, a sort of Reaganish centrist, center-right Republican. But Trump derangement syndrome is these people that no matter what he does, you can get people to say one thing, something that they said 3 years ago one way, you can get them to say completely the opposite, because it's Trump. Not because they had a political evolution or think about things differently, but it's because Trump said something, so now I got to believe the opposite. And you see this with a gajillion blue check celebrities and journalists and Twitter people all the time. So is there a version of that is related to Bernie? So like a Bernie derangement syndrome. Look, I hit Bernie all the time. I think the ideas of socialism, the ideas of collectivism are terrible. I think the fundamental idea that other people have to bow to you and that the state should decide who we should take more from and who we should give to, I think it crushes the human spirit. I think the ideas of collectivism have killed more people than any other set of ideas. The basic ideas of capitalism have brought more people out of poverty than any other system there is. Is it a perfect system? Probably not. But guess what? Humans ain't perfect, so we can't build a perfect system. It's a pretty freaking good system. So when people raise the alarm about Bernie, it's not that I think Bernie Sanders himself is evil. I think he is an old socialist with really bad ideas. But what he has done is he has caused those bad ideas to proliferate throughout the system and now caused a group of young people to think these are good ideas, even though they're time-tested as horrible ideas. And you ask socialists, well, where has it worked? And they'll tell you Bernie really loves Sweden and he really loves Denmark. And it's like he loves these tiny, tiny countries that in no way are comparable to the United States. And when you tell, well, what do you say? Well, what about Venezuela or Cuba? Well, that wasn't really socialism. Socialism's never really happened yet. It's all nonsense. The ideas of socialism are antithetical to the human experience, which is fighting for what's yours. I want a state that basically what it does is protect my freedoms. It protects my ability to have liberty, to live the life that I want to live. That's what most people want. That's why people still want to come to America. That's why nobody wants to leave America. So when you say Bernie derangement syndrome, I think there is truly, truly something to worry about here. As I said, he's a parasite in the Democratic Party system, but that party, once that thing has been taken over, well, then that starts taking over the wider American system. Are there ways that we could do things a little bit better that might be more in line with what Bernie thinks? So like everybody having health insurance. If you can show me a plan that actually allows some competition in the marketplace and allows people to have private health care and all of those things, of course there's ways to do it. I would still want more to be done by charity. I would still want more to be done by good. This is where you see these ridiculous people like Tom Steyer. He's screaming about reparations. He's really for reparations. He keeps telling us that. He's a billionaire. How much is he? Is he just wandering around giving black people money? Of course not. These people want to outsource all of the decisions to a government that they believe is good. But at the same time, they'll tell you that the government's run by Hitler. So none of it makes sense. Government's evil, make government bigger. It's like, guys, let's get a cohesive set of ideas here. And that's why I think broadly on the right, individual rights in the Constitution, that's sort of the kernel, and then things grow from that. It doesn't mean they do things right all the time. The right, even the libertarian right, they always spend more money, right? It's like you should be cutting back government all the time. Cut, 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 cut. More power to the states, et cetera, et cetera. The example I always use right here in California, I live in Los Angeles. I've lived here for a couple of years. We have had progressive after progressive after progressive. We're getting more homelessness. It's dirtier. Our streets are crappy. I was just in San Francisco last week, and it's an absolute disaster. I kid you not. I saw people shooting up heroin. I assume it was heroin. I didn't walk over and ask. On the street. I mean, the homeless population, garbage everywhere. San Francisco is disgusting. It's another progressive utopia. Why do these ideas always fail? But then you go to cities like Dallas, and you go to cities like Salt Lake City, and they're beautiful, and they're clean, and the economy's good, and businesses are thriving because they've cut taxes and they've incentivized work. So these things are obvious, but all the ideas of socialism and the Bernie stuff, free college for everybody, it's like, it's not really free, and why do you also want it? It's not just because you're so nice and you want people to be educated, you want them to be indoctrinated. If you ever wanted to send a young person to a place to be indoctrinated into leftism, where would you send them? You'd send them to college, because they've all become bastions of leftist groupthink. We all know this, right? So these people they're not good, and I think they prey on useful idiots, basically. And also, what's that line? It's like, if you're not they say if you're not a liberal in your 20s, you have no heart, and if you're not a conservative in your 30s, you have no brain. So it's not exactly right, but it's the sort of right idea. And also, a really interesting thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately is that the last remaining good liberals, whoever they are, I've had a whole bunch of them in the studio. You may notice that a lot of them have gone just radio silent on politics, because they don't know what to do anymore, because they don't want Biden. They know it's not going to work with Biden. They don't want socialism. I actually think probably there's a lot of undercurrent of Trump support, because they're just like, he's not all of those things. He is what he is. So we're in a really weird spot. But I don't think Bernie derangement syndrome is quite the I don't think it's quite comparable, let's say, to a Trump derangement syndrome, because the Trump stuff was all over the top. He's Hitler, he's a Nazi, he's going to kill people, and all of this stuff, where the Bernie stuff is like, these are legitimate, the ideas that he's bringing to the table are the worst political ideas that have been repackaged into something with that sort of sounds right, if you're not really thinking. So it's a little bit different. All right, let's see. We'll do another Skype call in just a sec. So we're doing Skype calls with you good people. Go to RubinReport.com, sign up. We can jump on Skype. I'll do one more question that was submitted, not on video, via text. I'm in California and I abstained from voting. I would have only voted for Tulsi or Amy Klobuchar anyway. Do you honestly think I should have voted? I've heard versions of this. Michael Malice, who I think is a great political thinker, who I've had in here many times, he just wrote a piece on why you shouldn't vote. Basically don't take part in a rigged game. I do still think it's your civic duty to vote. If we're all doing this, right? If we're all caring about this stuff, if the system still functions at any level, I think you have to do whatever you can to be part of the system, which is why I voted. I am a registered independent, but I went in and I could have at that moment said, screw the Democrats. For today, I'm a Republican and voted for Trump, but obviously Trump was going to, I don't even know if he has an opposition candidate, actually, at least on the ballot here in California. I felt that the one teeny tiny thing that I could do that would be somehow congruent with my beliefs would be if I could help Biden in this weird way, right? Because I really think Bernie is the real threat to freedom. So if my one little vote in California and a whole bunch of other people say, I really don't like Bernie, so I'll vote for Biden, even though all that being said, all the crazy things that I've just told you about Biden, why that's a huge risk too, that was the little piece that I could do in this. And I think you gotta be part of the system. Like otherwise, you could just complain about it. Or you can do what the Bernie people are going to do at the end of this, which is try to burn the whole thing down. I mean, the convention in Milwaukee is going to be an absolute disaster. They've been telling us for months, if you're paying attention, that they believe in political violence. When I was on the Young Turks, off camera, people would talk about that they believe in a certain amount of political violence. This is what they believe. That's what they're telling you. I do not believe in political violence. Okay, I don't. I believe we have to have a certain set of laws that we abide by, that enable us to agree to disagree, that enable a system to exist. But as Pete Buttigieg just said a couple days ago, Bernie Sanders wants to burn it all down. So in Pete's mind, as a calculating person, he said, okay, I'm looking at the path. I don't fully see the path. The party's going around Joe. I'm in on Joe, and let's see what reward I can get at the end of this. Let's see what cookie I can get at the end of this. All right, the delegate count looks to be the same. Last I just saw it here. Texas, Sanders has opened up a little more of a lead. Now remember, this is proportional in terms of delegates. So he's at about 28.8. This is as of a minute ago. And Biden's at 22.2. Bloomberg's at 18.7. I mean, one of the really interesting things right now is, what is Bloomberg doing? What is he thinking? And what does he do after this? He has the money to keep going. So do you just keep going and keep going and keep going for what? On the hopes that Biden crumbles, right? Because it's not like the Sanders people might go to you. If anything, you're siphoning votes away from Biden now. So it seems like if Bloomberg thinks that Biden can make it, that Bloomberg then would dip out now and just fund the hell out of Biden. That seems like would be the sane thing, right? If you're saying this, we want this, again, centrist, but it's not really centrist Democratic Party, well, then that's what you would do. I see no use for Bloomberg staying in unless he just thinks Biden can't make it and you're going to get as close as you can in the delegate count. You go for some three-way thing where you're the least favorable, but then the delegates are just like, oh, look at Biden, this isn't going to work. We hate Sanders. We'll take the billionaire because at least he's got the money to fight Trump. So we'll get a new delegate update in just a sec. Let's take a Skype call. I believe we're talking to Truman. Truman, how are you, my friend?
I see no use for Bloomberg staying in.
Truman, if you're there, throw your video on.
Yeah, I think I have it on, don't I?
I'm not seeing you, but no, we're not seeing you. Not seeing him yet. All right, well, we got audio for now.
I've got it. It's on my end.
We can hear him. All right.
I don't know, man.
All right, we're doing it old school. We're going radio style. What are your thoughts on tonight?
Well, I'd like to. Well, first off, thanks for doing this, man. This is super cool. This is all
awesome.
Growth of what you're doing with locals. So I mean, it's amazing.
Thanks, man.
So I want to ask you about. So I mean, you might have already answered it, but the question that I had about is Bernie an aberration or is he the logical conclusion? I mean, you said, just a few minutes ago, is a parasite that's infiltrated in there. And so I'd like to tease that out a little bit, man. I mean, in what way, which parts of it are an aberration? So what I mean by that is whenever Amy Klobuchar says, Bernie, or you can't show your receipts, she's not attacking the underlying ideology, and she was one of the most critical out there during the debates. She was just saying, we don't know how you're going to pay for it. In other words, if you could pay for it, it'd be fine. It'd be a great idea. And so I'm not sure. This is something I'm trying to figure out still. But whenever he says, Noam Chomsky just recently said, Bernie Sanders, he would make sense to a lot of politicians, early progressives. In what way is he a parasite? In what way is that a parasite? How do you make a distinction between Medicare for all, who want it, and Medicare for all?
Dude, this is a great question. There's so much here, and this is the type of thing you would never hear on CNN. So you're so right. So when Klobuchar says, "Oh, you don't know how to pay for it," or "Show me the receipts," or "How's this thing going to work?" That's not really saying that his ideas are bad. It's like, if you could pay for your ideas would be fine. So what I would say to that is, when Bernie says he can't pay for things, that is actually a feature, not a bug. The socialists, they don't view your ability to pay for something as something that would be good. They view, something is good. Healthcare for everybody, regardless of quality of care or the other real world problems that come along with it. They believe that the end point is good and you got to get there no matter what. And I think really what you're asking is all of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think what you're really asking is socialism or giant government or progressivism, collectivism, whatever you want to call it, is that sort of the end of what liberalism will become? Is that basically what the question is?
Kind of. Maybe, so on the surface, if we're talking about the politics part, sure, that would be part of it. But if we talk about politics as downstream from culture, and we've noticed, you can tell me if you think this is right or not, but that all of the framing, listen to AOC talk, listen to Bernie talk, and then now how the other candidates argue for stuff, it's all using this language of morality, of justice. Things aren't graded in terms of efficacy. And so right now you have this, kind of the justification for these policies is they're just, they're moral. It's what they hope to do, not their actual outcomes. And so as a result of basing your arguments for your policies, more importantly, on that, is that the natural conclusion until they get back to, at some point, some argument for efficacy. And as a result,
this is such a good question about sort of the underbelly of liberalism, which is something that I've been thinking a lot about, and a good portion of my book is devoted to this, because there's a reason that Bernie and the socialists and the government can do everything people, they went in through the liberals. They went in through the lefties because they know that liberals generally are open-minded, generally want to help people, and often, unfortunately, don't think all of those things through well enough. So it's like, you want to help poor people, tax rich people, give poor people money. Now, we know that these programs never work, which is really, I think, what you're getting to here. But they've all accepted that the morality of doing these things is right no matter what. And if you could just pay for it, it would be okay. Even though there's no amount of money that solves homelessness truly. There's no amount of money that solves inequality truly. And also, is it right to actually just take from whoever you want to take? So, you know what? I need to do more shows on this, and I'll talk about this. This is one of the chapters in my book is very much devoted to this, and I'll talk about this on the tour. Well, we shall see. Got anything else for me before I let you go?
I'm not other than I'm really excited to see you when you come to Denver in May, man. It's gonna be
awesome. Well, let's. You know what, guys? Let's make sure that Truman has a free meet and greet for the show. I want to shake your hand.
Dude, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Awesome.
All right. Real people. Real people on the Rubin Report. Texas, numbers have shifted just a ton. It looks about the same. 28.4 Sanders, 22.8 Biden, 18.7 for Bloomberg. That's with only 31% in, but you can start seeing trends that make sense at that point. Okay, let me jump to another question via electronic message. Let's see. Dave, is politics going forward always going to be insane with the only options being Sanders and Trump types? What are some meaningful changes to the primary system that could be made, such as ranked-based voting, that could make our candidates be more representative of our entire party or parties? Do you think a platform the size of Twitter should be prevented from banning political candidates on the basis of in-kind contribution to their opponents? So I'll deal with the tech part of this first. Look, you guys know I don't want the government regulating big tech. It is antithetical to what my beliefs are. Now, the part where this becomes messy is that we know that the big tech companies have all sorts of connections with politicians. We know that most of the people in San Francisco, even though they should be libertarians because they create things and want to be free and want to innovate and get the government out of the way, and do all sorts of awesome things like create something like Uber that breaks the stranglehold that the taxi companies have, and do so many cool things that we all love, right? I don't like the idea of, because these companies have so much power, this is the unique time where we must give the other thing with awesome power, in this case the government, the power to link these two things together. That really seems like a bad idea. And if you're a right-leaning person and you're going, well, Trump needs to regulate them, well, what happens if Trump is out in a year from now and now you've got President Bernie Sanders with the power to tell Twitter what to do? I mean, do you think when President Sanders tweets and then right-wing people say all the awful things that left-wing people say about Trump every day, every time Trump tweets, you think they're going to let them on the platform? Of course they wouldn't, right? Trump, I don't know what pressure he's applying to these companies. Maybe he's doing it behind the scenes, but we don't really see it. Although it sounds like this guy, Paul Singer, who's been a big Republican donor, although I guess he doesn't like Trump, it sounds like he's buying a huge portion of Twitter and going to try to force out Jack. So you know they got to be deleting a lot of documents on censoring conservatives and shadow banning and the rest of it. So we'll find out about that. So I would not be for the in-kind contribution thing and forcing these companies to do anything. I know it's crappy. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right the same way that when I say that I don't want to force the baker to bake the cake for the gay wedding. It doesn't feel right. It's like, oh yeah, we should just kind of force them to do it, do what you think is the right thing and whatever, but I want people to live the lives that they want. And the only way you can do that is staying out of people's lives, not getting involved in everybody's life. So that's just what I believe. To the first part of your question, which I'm answering second, do we ever get out of this thing? I actually do think we can get out of this thing at some level, not at every level, because everything's changing right now. The internet, we are now 20, 30 years into like sort of the bigger internet. We're 15, 20 years into social media, from Friendster to MySpace to Facebook to Twitter to blah, blah, blah. I think we are now facing a time when there are all sorts of challenges. We all get our news in different places. We cater things to ourselves. We're hearing new information. We're hearing false information. We're hearing ideas that are good ideas for the first time that maybe we didn't get taught in college, that maybe we didn't hear in the news. There's so much there, right? There's so much there that we have to figure out, what does that mean to a functioning country, a functioning society that's a pluralistic society with different people and different ideas going forward. We have to figure that out. All that being said, I do think there's a way out of this. The way out of this, basically, is that the Democratic Party needs to end this thing. They need to split. Let them split. You can't keep doing this thing where the socialists and the liberals, or whatever they are at this point, they're not liberals in my sense of liberal, but the socialists and the lefties, or the old Democrats, they shouldn't be in the same party. Let the party split. Let's have a more functioning three-party system, which in many ways is also scary, right? The more times we split parties, then we could have all sorts of problems getting governing coalitions that make sense. Look what's happening in Israel. Just today, they had their third election, I think within the last like 14 months or so. And once again, Netanyahu has the lead, but it looks like he's going to be 1 or 2 short again for now the third time, basically. Although I think Gantz had it the last time, but couldn't form a coalition either. So when you have too many parties, it can also be very hard to do things. So we have to sort of be careful what we wish for, and we've had something that has worked pretty well for a certain amount of time here. For 200 plus years, that's a pretty good situation, although we used to have more functioning political parties. But what I would rather see generally with the parties is I would love to see the strong libertarians push for what they want more in the conservative movement. That makes sense to me because you have the basic ideas of we kind of believe in the Constitution. So that makes sense. We should have that fight within the party. The Democratic thing, as I said before, it doesn't really make sense anymore. I think if that thing breaks down, then have a socialist party if that's what you want, and have a Democratic Party that maybe just stands for slightly less big government. I don't know what it would really stand for. Have a Republican Party. And then if there's some other ideas out there, then have those parties too, because that's what we're all doing online anyway, right? We're all finding the ideas we like online. So the system has to sort of change with us. But the risk is, and this is why when Bernie wants to burn the whole thing down all the time, it's like, you gotta be careful what you wish for, because we have things that have existed for a long time and done really well. Again, they're not perfect things. And this is why all the time when I talk about why the New York Times is so horrible and CNN is so horrible and so much of this is horrible, it's like, I just want them to be not totally horrible, but they seemingly can't do it. It's like almost once the social justice wokeism thing infects the host, it just immediately takes over. It's a very easy disease to catch, but it's hard to get rid of the way a virus is. And it eats away at all of these things. So what we're seeing right now, and this I think gets to Truman's question a moment ago, is the socialist view the end of what a big government liberalism is? And maybe that is what it is. So let Bernie do his thing, but fight it with the good ideas of freedom and liberty and limited government and states' rights and the rest of it from a different perspective. So that's what I would say about that. All right, here's one, totally different, but definitely worth talking about. What do you think about the current coronavirus situation? Okay, I think one of the things that I think, just broadly speaking, is it is very hard to get information that feels sort of sane and non-alarmist and reliable about this. So I've been trying, and I've tweeted out a couple of times, if you guys have people that you trust on this, that you think are being honest about it, et cetera, et cetera. Personally at the moment, because I'm so leery about clickbait and the way everyone gins fear up all the time, I'm not super worried at the moment. I've looked at some of the graphs, and you see some stuff that starts looking like a hockey stick that looks kind of scary. This is by no means where I'm an expert, so I don't want to even be alarmist or even not alarmist in this. But what I would say, in a sort of, I suppose, reassuring way, is that I don't think what has happened in China is going to happen over here. Of course, anything could change. I've been on a lot of planes lately. There's a lot of people wearing masks. When you go to a place like San Francisco and then you see all these homeless people everywhere and filth all over the place and garbage everywhere, and again, we see that in LA now, are these places going to be breeding grounds for people that are sicker to transmit these things? I suppose that's possible. Right now, it sounds like it's really only deadly for elderly or really infirmed people, but that younger, healthier people are surviving it. Could it morph and change? All these things are possible. You know what? This is where I would love to have some more information from you guys. So if you are following some people that you think have really sober, good, honest answers on this, do me a favor, email support@rubinreport.com, and we'll look into getting some people on the show. I already have a short list of people that I want on, but that would actually be very helpful to do that. All right, let's jump to the next Skype call, guys. Who am I talking to here? Gonna talk to Kevin. Kevin, do we have you?
Hey, how you doing, Dave?
Kevin, how's it going?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Are you seeing video?
I'm not seeing. Oh, there we go. Got the video. All right, man. What's happening?
Nothing much. How you doing, Dave?
I'm good. Talking to real people. Tell me, what's better, this or CNN? Come on.
I don't know. I should pop up CNN and see how they're doing.
Ow. All right, what do you got for me?
My question is, as we see media move from cable television to like a long podcasting format, how long do you think it'll be until we have our first POTUS podcast? Kind of like how we have POTUS Twitter, how it's kind of the official Twitter now. Do you think we'd ever see a president host their own podcast while serving as president to speak directly to the American people? Interview members of his or her cabinet or advisors or something like that?
Oh man, that's a great question. Well, we're already heading there in a lot of ways, right? Ted Cruz right now is doing a podcast with Michael Knowles. I don't know if they just ended it or not, but he was doing it for a while where they were talking about impeachment. And I think Cruz is now doing his own solo podcast. So I think we're already seeing, and the way Trump tweets and that everybody is on Twitter and the rest of it, I think we're already seeing that happen. Remember back in the day, presidents, until very recently, I think maybe Trump is the first one not to do it, used to give a weekly radio address. I think even Obama did it, if I'm not mistaken. So doing a podcast is just sort of the next version of that. But yeah, the way that right now celebrity and the political machine is just colliding and becoming one thing, it's like, why would anyone at this point vote for a career politician? It's pretty hard to be a career politician and get anything done. So I do sense we're going to have more Trump-like people be politicians, at least the effective ones, people that come from the private sector, or that, for better or worse, are celebrities or comedians or YouTubers or whatever else it is. I actually think something like that would be pretty cool. I mean, imagine if right now Trump was doing a weekly thing where it was like each week he just talks to a different, different person in his cabinet. I had Ajit Pai on, who's from the, not the CAA, from the FCC. CAA is my agency. From the FCC, and it's like, we had a great conversation, and we talked a lot about Trump. It would be really cool to hear Trump go, well, this is why I hired you, this is where we agree, this is where we disagree, and everything else.
Yeah, excellent answer. I think it would make sense for someone like Trump to go on your podcast, or like Rogan once a month or something like that. I think, he'd get elected for a third term if he'd do something like that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't.
I think it's a good idea.
Well, you just freaked out. You just freaked out. Yeah, third term. Uh-oh. People are freaking out. Yeah. I do think it's possible. Listen, I will put the stake in the ground. I believe we will get Trump on this show before the election. That is my belief. We've been working on it, and we shall see.
I'd love to see it.
Right on, man. Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you later.
Yep. Bye.
All right. Let's go. We got an update for you guys. The current Democratic pledged delegate counts is 144 to Biden, 101 to the Socialists. We got 26 at Buttigieg, 9 at Elizabeth Warren. Again, the interesting thing with Elizabeth Warren is what's her move right now, right? Like, you're done. We all know you're done. I said she was done weeks ago. The question is, what does she try to extract from either Bernie or from Biden for the support? What does she go for that? I don't know what her move is. The longer she stays in, the more she hurts Bernie, right? Because her people most likely go to Bernie. So if she wants to somehow team up with Bernie, then it's like, get out now and push your people to Bernie. If you want to team up with Biden, it's also like, get out now and help Biden get over the hump. So she has a really interesting move to make, and I'm sure there are people behind the scenes on both campaigns trying to come up with whatever that offer is. Is it VP? I mean, this, by the way, is where what I was talking about related to Biden's cognitive abilities and long-term health as a 77-year-old who has had health issues, who's obviously having some stuff go on with him right now. This is where this comes into play, because imagine right now if the conversation is being had with the Biden people saying, well, we need a female. Biden's old and white. We all get that. And that's a problem for us because we're the party of diversity, apparently, even though we only have a couple old millionaires running for president. I mean, all three of the remaining candidates. No, 4, including Bloomberg. You got a billionaire and 3 millionaires, right? Like, you can't make this stuff up. The party of the people, the diverse party of the people has 4 white people, all millionaires and billionaires. But if you're Warren, or you're Biden's campaign, you could be sitting there going, all right, well, we want Warren's support, and we know that really hurts Bernie. So do we offer her VP, because then that gets us a woman, it gets the progressive base not to burn the whole thing down because they kind of like her, although I think the Bernie people, for the most part, are off the rails and are going to do it no matter what. But then anyone voting for Biden needs to know that is the risk. The risk is you're still going to get a woke progressive if he goes the route of an Elizabeth Warren. So that's why this game is so crazy right now. And by the way, I want to be very clear. I'm very excited about this. I think it's actually kind of cool. We're unearthing a lot of stuff. I think it's fun. It can be a little exhausting and a little crazy, and the gamesmanship can be whatever. But we're actually having if I could be cliche for a moment, we're having a battle of ideas. Often very bad ideas, but we're having a battle of ideas, and I actually think that's pretty good. Okay, let's see where we're at here. I'll go to another question via email. Let's see. If Bernie wins the nomination and loses to Trump, what lessons do you hope or expect the Democrats to learn? I mean, here's the problem, guys, and I've been talking about this for years. At no point in the last couple of years has the progressive movement ever said we're wrong about anything. They're wrong about everything, but they've never said we're wrong about anything. So you think about it. Trump gets voted president. Donald Trump, who everybody knows, if there was a normal system right now and things weren't wacky, that I think most Republicans would go, Donald Trump probably isn't the guy that should be president. We like the guy more like Ronald Reagan. We like someone that's a little more statesmanly, et cetera, et cetera. But this is what we got. And in terms of what he's actually doing, he's doing a fine job. And he's the last guy that was going to fight the media and the rest of it, right? If Bernie wins, wins the nomination, but then loses to Trump, I don't think there's any evidence that the progressives have it within them to look in the mirror. I think they've, as many people have said, but I think Peter Boghossian, who I've had on many times, my good buddy, I think he was the first one to say that wokeness and social justice and leftism and collectivism, all of these bad ideas, they have become a secular religion, right? These people have traded in whatever their other belief systems are for this really bad set of ideas. And in this set of ideas, there is no redemption narrative. You can't get out and be a good person still. And that's what keeps people in it. It's like a self-selected hostage situation. So there's no evidence along the road. You would think, oh, Trump became president. Should we kind of think about what we've been saying? Maybe we drove too many people to the right. Maybe we're doing something wrong here. But did they do it? Was there ever a moment of it? No, everything's always more proof that they're right and that the evil system is coming for them even more and more. So in a weird way, what I think would be the healthiest thing for America would be like, let's have the battle. Let's have the old Jedi versus Sith battle. Let's have the battle of the capitalists versus the socialists. Let's have the Trump, I love America versus Bernie, I hate America. Let's have it out. And then hopefully Bernie gets crushed. Then finally the good liberals, wherever they've been scattered across the galaxy after Order 66, whoever still survives, can come back to the Jedi Temple and get back to Coruscant and get some semblance of a government going again, or get some semblance of a party, a sensible party going again. That strikes me as maybe a possibility, but there's just no evidence that anything can kill this thing. Like Freddy Krueger, you got to bury his bones to really get rid of him, but that never works either. It's something like that. So, but the problem is that if Biden wins here, the socialists just keep coming. They keep coming, and that's why I think the party has to split, because the Democrats have no defense mechanism against it. What the Republicans have, or at least people on the right or conservatives, again, whatever you want to call that, is they can say, we do not believe in any of these ideas because we are capitalists, we believe in free market capitalism, and we believe in individual rights. Everyone should be treated the same under the law. That is a very strong, and then for conservatives, they have a religious underpinning of that and everything else, okay? Now that is a strong set of ideas to fight this thing with, I think. But the Democrats, the remaining Democrats, they don't have a strong set of ideas to fight it with. Oh, we're liberals, we like to help people, we're kind of nicer than you are, but we're a little more realistic. It just doesn't make sense. So I think this thing just has to burn out however it is, but hopefully it doesn't burn down the party and the country along the same time. Okay, let's see. What do we got here? Let's see. Dave, you tweeted the other day from your local polling station. What was your mindset as you went to cast the ballot? So I mentioned that. I'm sorry. That was a question for a Skype person. Let's talk to Chris. Guys, can we get Chris on? I just jumped him on the question. Let's get Chris on, and we'll...
Just give us a minute.
All right, I'm going to give you a minute. We're going to talk to Chris. Chris, you can modify your question, or I'll answer that question. Sorry about that, Chris. My bad. All right. In the meantime, you know what? I'll really quickly do something else, and then you guys let me know when Chris is ready. Let's see. We did the Tulsi Gabbard question. The Republican Party seems more open to libertarian ideas since the Trump phenomenon. What can we do to further remind the electorate that individual liberty is what makes America great, and further support candidates who will protect those ideals in the hall of government? One of the things that has sort of comforted me about Trump, let's say, is that, ready to go? Okay, I'll do this quick. Is that Rand Paul, who is the most liberty-minded person in all of the Senate, obviously, right? Son of Ron Paul, he's a true libertarian, constantly talks about spending, not just taxes and the rest of it, but actually wants to scale back government. He's become one of Trump's biggest supporters. So to me, it's like if the most outspoken libertarian likes the amount of regulation Trump has cut, likes the foreign policy, we're not getting into extra orders. We're actually trying to end the Afghanistan war now. We've reinstituted some deterrence by killing Soleimani. We're not going to, remember, literally a month ago, everyone was saying we're going to war with Iran. We're not going to war with Iran. It was obvious then, remember, net neutrality, the world's over, this endless hysteria that they've kept us all on. It burns too hot. So I actually do think there is a nice moment for libertarians. And one of the things I hear, I speak at a lot of libertarian conferences and for a lot of libertarian groups on college campuses, they keep saying, oh, well, we need to run a strong libertarian against Trump. And it's like, I don't think so, guys. Like right now you got a guy that's pretty amenable to a lot of your ideas. He's a businessman, he's a free market guy. Does he want tariffs more than you want him? Probably more than you want them. Probably. Does he want borders in ways that perhaps some of the open border libertarians, which I'm not, by the way, want? Possibly. But is he mostly getting there? And that's what I would say. A classical liberal to me is just a more realistic libertarian, where a libertarian is more of a utopianist. And a classical liberal is a little more of a realistic one, where I go, well, we got to have some government. Trump sort of seems to be in kind of something like that. And on that note, let's go to Chris. Chris, I'm sorry I jumped you on the question, man. Let's see if we get some video over there. Chris, do we have you? Do we have? We're still working this whole system through, guys, so thanks for being patient with us. We will perfect it by next time. Do we have Chris? I think we lost Chris. All right, we're gonna, you know what, come back to me. Let's see if we can snag him again, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Where can we go here? Let me give you a little update on things. Texas, these numbers are just changing just a tiny bit. Oh, do we have Chris? Chris?
Yes, Dave.
Chris! All right, man. Can you get your video on?
I do it. There we go.
I think you've got video. It's on its way.
Yeah.
I don't see it yet, but all right, maybe it's coming through and I just can't see it on my screen. How you doing, man? Oh, think we lost you. Did we lose Chris, guys? Guys, I'm going to let you sort this out in the control room. I'm going to keep rolling, okay? Okay, we lost Chris. Sorry about that, Chris. Hang tight. Let's see if we can figure it out. Let's see. This is a really interesting question. What do you think the president's debate approach will be towards each of the possible
background
rivalries?
noise.
We got Chris again. Let's try it again. Chris, are you there?
I am here.
All right, there you are. I can't see you right now, but I'll trust you tried to turn the camera on, and maybe it'll pop on. So we'll see. How's it going? I think we lost him again. Man, Skype. The Skype gremlin. All right, come back to me. Hello, people. See, we're on the fly here. We're gonna perfect all this. We're actually testing out a new system on how we can do these live calls. So I appreciate you guys bearing with us. The question that I saw here, which I think is really interesting, is what do you think the president's debate approach will be towards each of the rivalries, Sanders, Biden, Bloomberg? Which one would be the most fun, most cringe, and most trample-like approach? Okay, so I think in Trump's mind, Biden's the guy he wants, right? Because it gets you to unearth all the Ukraine stuff with Biden's son, and it gets him to rehash impeachment, which he won and the Democrats lost. It's a little bit more traditionally like it was debating Hillary, right? You know what you're kind of getting. It's just a standard Democrat from the machine, and that's what you're getting. And he would be the most comfortable doing that. I think it would be very comparable, let's say, to what it was like when he debated Hillary. I think it would be very, very much like that. Also, Trump, for whatever you want to say about him and the strange way he speaks and all that stuff, it's like the guy's pretty quick on his feet and knows how to crack a joke. And when you've got Biden befuddled and everything else, I think that would play well to Trump. The Bernie one is interesting because Bernie, for all that I don't like about him, Bernie does know his ideas, right? So Bernie, I think, would be able to idea versus idea. Trump's strength is not ideas. Trump, I think, has a broad sense of what he believes. But I don't think he's like a nitty gritty sort of policy guy. Like I want to get in on healthcare and talk about all the different reasons I'm for this or that or why I do this or that. Trump likes the idea and then hires people that can massage the idea. So I think in that way, Sanders then becomes a little bit more difficult to deal with. But I think ultimately what gives Trump the major advantage over Sanders, and in many ways the major advantage over any of the Democrats at this point, is Trump can constantly hang his hat on, I am a capitalist. I love America. We have had 230 years of freedom like nowhere else. We are a good country. We are a decent country. We are a moral country. The world needs us to be the leader. All of those things. And Bernie fundamentally is unable to say good things about America. I mean, he just can't. He never does. He says nice things about Sweden and Denmark. And I think at the end, even if Sanders outwonked him on some policy stuff, I think most people would walk away going, Trump likes America. Bernie doesn't really like America. Maybe Bernie could be president of Sweden, but I kind of like America, and I'm going to vote for the guy that likes America. So I think that makes his job against Sanders, even though on the policy side, I think it would be a little more difficult because Sanders could get him into a game that's not really his game to play. I think he wins there. And then the Bloomberg one, I mean, that's the biggest X factor. And look, Bloomberg is sort of all the things that everyone said Trump was. Everyone said Trump was buying the vote and Trump's a billionaire and he's buying influence and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, he didn't really do any of those things. The media gave him a lot of coverage and free publicity and, you know, he wasn't paying all these people to canvass everywhere and all the rest of this nonsense. It's like Bloomberg bought his way in. So I think Trump, also the problem with Bloomberg is he doesn't come off like a human. I mean, he's incredibly stiff. It's like, how did this guy even get into politics? Again, as I said earlier, do I think he's a functioning executive? Well, do I think he was a good mayor in the city that I lived in, New York City? Yes. I don't think it would even matter about maybe he's a little bit more big government than Trump. I think it would just come off that he's just sort of an uncharismatic bore more than anything else. And by the way, his biggest problem wouldn't be Trump. Bloomberg's biggest problem is that the base would go bananas. I mean, the base is going to go bananas no matter what, right? Because if you go Biden, the base is still going to go bananas. But if it's Bloomberg and the base goes, all right, we didn't get it with Bernie, and you guys took out Biden, and you went for the billionaire who is a capitalist who dared wear it. I don't know if you guys saw this. He wore that evil. Did you see that evil flag at the debate last week? He wore an American flag at a Democratic debate. I mean, that's a no-no with these things. I think the base would go crazy. So I think that would make Trump's job easier because Trump could constantly be like, your own party hates you, little Mike. Get off your shine box. The party hates you. So I don't know. I see Trump's a fairly good debater. He proved it against Hillary. He's also willing to pull out all the stops. I think Mike would have Bloomberg that is, would have some tricks up his sleeve, but I don't see that playing that well either. All right, we're at 154, Biden 103. By the way, I should have mentioned that it takes 1,991 delegates to win the nomination. California, obviously, has not been updated. Do we have an update on California, which is the biggest hall in the country? I think it's, what is it? It's something like 300 plus delegates in California. I'm not sure. So when we get some info on that, that's obviously the big fish of the night. So we'll see about that. Guys, should I try Eric on Skype? Are we good on that one, or are we still trying to get Chris? Just let me know. Let's see here. Oh, we're getting some California updates as well. Let's see. What's that? We can go to Eric? All right, let's go to Eric on the Skype. Eric, how you doing? We're calling Eric. All right, now I see how this thing's going. We've got everybody on queue, and then we call them when it works. Eric, do we have you?
I am here. How are
All
you?
right,
Dave?
it worked. I'm not seeing you. Oh, there we go. Eric, how's it going?
Hey, Dave.
Eric, I met you a couple days ago.
You did in San Francisco. I'm in Silicon Valley working in tech marketing.
Well, it's good to see you again. We had a drink. We did a little impromptu Rubin Report community meeting, and about 15 or 20 people showed up. It was a ball.
Yep, absolutely. Had a great time. So this is great what you're doing here.
Thanks, man.
I love the Rubin Report community. Not only interacting with you, but all of the great people some of them that we met in San Francisco, some of the smartest, kindest, most insightful people that I've ever talked talked to or met. So my question really is about Texas.
Sure.
What the heck is going on in Texas? This is traditionally red state, and Bernie Sanders is ahead over there. So what is going on? Are the California immigrants just ruining the great state of Texas? I mean, my opinion is we need a wall around California, but to keep the people in. We're both in California. What do you think?
Ironically, you say that as someone that I just saw you in California. There's some weird stuff here. So first off, you got to remember that this is just a Democratic primary. So when you see that the base of the Democrats are going more to the left and more towards Bernie and socialism and the whole thing, that just may be where the rabid base of the energy is. That doesn't mean it's a Texas-wide phenomenon. But that being said, in the Senate race, the Ted Cruz versus Beto Senate race, it was stupidly close. I mean, only a couple points stopped Cruz from winning, and would have had Beto, a very, very far left progressive who wants to confiscate guns, would have been the senator, the Democratic senator from Texas. So there is some weird energy there. And even though you're joking about the California thing, I can tell you, I think maybe we discussed this briefly the other night over drinks, that when I traveled the country in the last year or so, the amount of people that I meet in the middle of the country that are going, Dave, you got to stop the Californians from coming here because they leave because of the bad lefty ideas and then they import these stupid ideas here. I hear a ton of that. So I'm sure there's some version of that happening in Texas right now. And I think it's happening, by the way, in Utah. I think it's happening in Colorado. I think it's happening in Florida and some other places.
Well, that's why I make the joke about building a wall around California, because the rest of the state, I'm talking to some of these or exchanging messages on the RubinReport.com and with the members there, and they're saying, hey, enough of the Californians moving into our state. And I hear that from the people in Texas all the time because they're kind of ruining it. But when you look at Bernie Sanders, who is about as far left as you can get, forget that. In American politics, he is as far left as you can get. My opinion is he's a communist in his views primarily, even beyond socialism and democratic socialism, however he wants to frame it. But when he's ahead in Texas, makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, I see it. And again, you got to just view it through the limited prism of a party primary. So if you view it through that, oh man, I've been talking a lot today. If you view it through that concept, then I think it's a little more, I'm double talking here. I got my audio whacked out in my ear. Now I'm hearing myself speak a minute later. Okay, let's start that over. Everything that you said, I think is basically right. But if you view it through the prism of a party primary where we know that the base is out of control, then the hope is that it's just the base. And the hope is that if Bernie loses the nomination, the hope is, I suppose, that the moderates then become more moderate, and either some of them maybe move to Trump, some of them don't vote, or some of them vote for Biden or something like that.
So you think there's no danger of Texas going for Bernie?
I don't think there's no danger, but I don't think it's a huge danger. I really don't. Not yet. I mean, especially, and look, even Biden today just said this thing about Beto. It's like, you're going to lead me on guns. It's like, man, you want to lose Texas quick, go for the guns. But again, that being said, Beto did get kind of close to Cruz for the Senate race. So, there's a lot of things that are just kind of upside down right now. So who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my other question is, can you quote the second line of the Declaration of Independence?
And man, you really put me on the spot after a long day. Give it to me.
I'm joking. If you can't, should you be elected president? It's a Bernie joke. I'm sorry, a Biden joke. No, I mean Jack.
Oh.
I was just trying to say. Oh, Chuck.
Yeah.
You know the thing.
You know the thing. Yeah, we find these truths to be self-evident. Yeah, that all men are created equal. Can you believe it? It's crazy. Radical stuff. All right, Eric. Thanks, man.
All right, Biden. Thanks.
All right. See you soon. All right, where are we at in Texas here? He's talking about Texas. Texas right now, 28.9 Biden, 28.9 Sanders, 23 Biden, and 18 sort of Yankee northerner, something like that. And again, I say this as a lifelong New Yorker. I was born in Brooklyn. I grew up in Long Island. I went to college upstate New York. I lived in New York City most of my life. So there's a lot of good things about New York. It's easy to mock it all the time. We have ridiculously high taxes. New York City's become a progressive crap hole because of Bill de Blasio. But it just seems funny to me. Like it's hard to picture a Texan voting for Bloomberg because it's like, if you're going to vote for the moderate, then why not just go in on Biden? But I guess a lot of people do have the worries about Biden. So there you go. California is not reporting yet. Thank you, guys. There are 415 delegates in California. All right, guys, we're going to go for 7 more minutes. We're going to go till 7:30 local time. And let's see what else we got there. I see some questions flying in as I'm on the fly here. Let's see. What's the most effective attack the Trump campaign could use in the upcoming election to tear down a potential Biden-Sanders campaign? I'm from Washington, and I'm absolutely bombarded at work by anti-Trump sentiment and was told recently to stop listening to people like you and Ben Shapiro in the warehouse because my boss was upset by it. So I'm so thankful for you and Ben and Jordan and all the amazing IDWs. Well, first off, thanks for listening and thanks for your support and all that good stuff. And that sucks. That sucks that you're put in that position. I will give you some hope. I told the story, I think a couple of weeks ago, but maybe 3 months ago or so, I was in Home Depot and we were buying some plants, and I hear Ben Shapiro talking really fast, and the Republicans are talking about Ben Shapiro, and he's talking about, and I'm going, Shapiro's here. Shapiro's at one aisle over, and he's talking to somebody about something, and it turned out that it was a guy that worked at Home Depot who was up on a forklift, putting stock away, and he happened to be a dark-skinned guy, okay? So I'm going to assume he was Latino. I don't know for a fact. But, if you think, for all the people that think, only white racists or something watch Shapiro or listen to Shapiro, it was not that. It was a blue-collar laborer, guy working hard to earn a dime, who I'm guessing was probably first or second generation American, who was probably thrilled to have the job, listening to Shapiro. So I do think good ideas are proliferating, and I'm incredibly enthused about that. And I hear you, it sucks. And speaking of being bombarded, I don't watch TV that often. I certainly don't watch TV during the week, but on the weekend I'll flick channels a little bit if I have a little time. And the amount of Mike Bloomberg ads that we're being hit with the last couple of days in California has just, And he doesn't even come off as cool or good or happy or like anyone likes him in that. It's like you can't even tell if they're hit pieces on the guy. And the licking of the fingers thing. Again, today you saw that. He's eating the pizza. He's licking his fingers. He touches the spigot at the communal coffee thing. It's like, man, you are out of touch. You are out of touch. Okay, let's see. Guys, should we jump to Andrew on Skype? What's that? We're calling Andrew on Skype. All right, let's talk to Andrew on Skype.
Hey, Dave. How you doing?
What's happening?
Hello?
Andrew Dave. In Grand Rapids. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you, Dave?
I'm doing well. I think your camera's going to kick in a sec. There you go.
All right. Hey, how's it going, man?
Good, good. Very professional headphone situation.
I tell you what, man. Come prepared.
Very good. What's on your mind, man?
So, one thing that I asked a question about originally about your VP thoughts and all that, but as you were talking a lot more about VP things, I got to thinking more about how people will just say things. Like a lot of the candidates have said just out and out lies, and there's no accountability whatsoever. And the closest thing I can see to something that's accountable or some kind of repercussions for saying something that isn't true is kind of the woke scold cancel culture, where there's actually people losing jobs. Like Chris Matthews just lost his job because he said something, but it's kind of its worst version of accountability. And I'm wondering about your thoughts about, like, okay, if we're going to have candidates that are not octogenarian socialists and people who are, not the worst in the bottom of the barrel, like, I think that it's important that we get the culture right. And I'm wondering, how do we get it so that these kind of slippery politicians don't just say whatever they want to say and have there's no repercussions. What are your thoughts on all that?
Oh man, that's such a good question, and it's interesting that you brought Chris Matthews into it, because I have no particular feelings one way or another towards Chris Matthews. He's just a cable news guy. I met him briefly once at a debate a couple of years ago. MSNBC guy, you sort of get what you get. But he was never fully woke, and that's the funny thing. I think with a lot of these guys that are not fully woke, they think if they're just woke enough that that it buys them protection. But what they don't realize is it just buys you a certain amount of time. It doesn't really buy you protection, because there's a protection racket going. But the second you really step over the line, they will take you out, and that's why they took him out. I mean, the idea that he resigned from MSNBC in the middle of the craziest election ever, the guy who lives for this, absolutely lives for this, is crazy. I will tell you one funny Chris Matthews thing, and then I'll answer your question specifically. Maybe like 8 or 9 years ago when I lived in New York City, it was a Sunday afternoon. I was out with like 10 friends. We're at a Mexican joint at like 2 o'clock, drinking margaritas. Everybody's wasted. It's like 2 o'clock, beautiful day out on the Upper West, so we're sitting outside. Chris Matthews walks by, and I've always been a political junkie, although I wasn't doing a politics show at the time, and I was like, yo, hardball, you want to join us? And he just looked at me and he's like, ah! He's got that laugh, laugh, and then he just walked away. In answer to your question, though, honestly, this is going to sound a little corny, but what I really believe the honest answer is of how do we get more accountability out of these guys is that we need more of what I would say is a sort of Jordan Peterson-like message out there. And that's why I'm actually really hopeful. I spent a year plus on tour with the guy and 100 plus stops in 20 countries and everything. And I saw people bettering themselves every day. And truly, I bettered myself through the course of that. I'm not perfect, but I know it helped me get on a path that I want to be on, that I'm on now. And I think the more that, young guys like you and people that are watching all of these shows, the more that you believe in personal responsibility, the more that we all like kind of get our lives right, then we could fix the system, right? Like that's the whole point. Why are you cleaning your room? You're cleaning your room because everyone wants to clean the world first. Clean your room first, and then eventually enough people will trickle up through the system. Where, Bernie and the socialists, they want this top-down thing. They know what's right for you, and they'll tell you what's right. And that's just the reverse. Uh-oh, I hope you know that woman behind you. Otherwise, we get a real viral moment here.
We're doing our taxes right now, so
you're doing your taxes.
We're punishing ourselves with the Super Tuesday and taxes, so it's all government all day.
You're going to be an ANCAP by the end of the day. But in any event, I think really that is what the answer is. Like, it's not like the most satisfying answer because it's like, oh, it's on you to fix it. But like, whatever you do in your life, like, I'm pretty sure if we all start being the best versions of ourselves somehow and living with some degree of honor and integrity and doing the best work we can, that we can force the change up. I think that's really, it's the best I got.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it's not enough to just have like, oh, what's a better candidate, or like, oh man, what are these good qualities? It's like, it starts way before that. And I think that's why Jordan Peterson's so popular, because he looks beyond just the premise that it has to be somebody's personality that has a savior complex. It's like a lot of people on the one hand talk about how awful politicians are, but then for some reason we look to them to be our moral leaders and these kind of moral like leaders and people who are going to change the culture and like save us from this. And really that's they're just reacting to us, which I think not a lot of people understand.
Yeah.
So
one of the things when I woke up from being a progressive, it was like they were always screaming about how corrupt everybody is, how evil everybody is, and how awful government is. And their answer was to always give it more power, but we just have to have their guys in it. Meaning their guys are good and moral and decent, and they'll do all the right things. But everybody else who believes the different thing, those are the real bad guys and whatever. And that's really why I came around to believing in personal responsibility and all the other stuff that I always talk about.
I don't know if you know this, but my tribe is better than your tribe. And so when my tribe takes over, it's way better, but your tribe's not as good.
You're not going to believe this, but I think my tribe is better and way better, and we do it much better, and that's how it works.
You're objectively wrong, and you're canceled. So,
all right, man. Good talking to you. Thanks for the support. I appreciate it.
See you in Grand Rapids. I got front row tickets, man.
Oh, awesome. All right. I was going to say I'll throw in the VIP thing, but I guess you did it already, so I'll see you in Grand Rapids.
See you then, man.
All right, right on. See ya. All right, guys, it is 7:32, and we do not have a California update. We're at 28.9 in Texas for Sanders, 23.2. So that, whatever that percentage is going to shake out, it's obviously not going to move too much. So I will just give you the final delegate count that, as I have it right now, although it's not the final of the night, obviously. 163 Bernie, 163 Joe. You know what's funny? I'm doing this on my iPad here, and my guys are giving me information on the fly so you can see it moving at different times. But all I have when I see Biden and Bernie is I have two tiny little pictures of old men. So when I look at it, I don't see their names. I just see an old man's head because that's what they've left us with. So it is Biden with 163, Bernie 109. Again, Buttigieg's got the 26, but he's done, and Warren has got 9, but she's done. She has to figure out what she wants to do. So I'll leave you guys with this. I think a couple interesting things will happen over the next couple days. We'll kind of see now, does Obama finally make a move and endorse Biden? Does Hillary actually do anything? Are they all still hedging their bets in case Biden flames out? Do these guys, Biden and Bernie, because of their age, have to announce VP candidates early? Does Bernie have to do something to suddenly get a little momentum back? Do the Bernie people go completely bananas right now because now they're losing, and they're pretty sore losers? They like winning. Everyone likes winning, but they really want to burn the thing down if they're not winning. There's a lot of questions that remain to be seen. Don't get too crazy about it. Just live your life however you can. Check in when you can. Care about it, but don't let it dominate you. Be part of the system as much as you can, or part of, no, I shouldn't say the system, be part of the process as much as you can. And I'll keep doing this, and I hope you guys will keep joining. We'll work out these bugs. This was really a first live test run through, and we were just changing some stuff in the studio. So we'll have this perfected next time, I promise you. And maybe we'll start doing a live call-in thing more often. I think it's actually a really cool way of connecting with you guys. And I often learn more from you guys when I meet you on the street or at events than I do from some of the people that I have in here. And even just for the 5 or 6 people that I talked to tonight, it was like, those are pretty interesting questions. You know, that's good stuff. That's not just the generic stuff that you're going to see in other places. So anyway, I thank you guys, and Super Tuesday, man. We'll see what we wake up to.